Good evening and welcome to Overtime here on WOTM. I am Gerhard Mathangani, joined once again by our expert researcher / historian, Mark Everett Kelly. Mark, you were under the weather for a little bit, but glad to see you back here. Mark's got some good stuff with the Super Bowl coming up. We'll have some fun numbers that we're going to dive into and some fun tidbits as we get you ready for the big game. We also have some very, very big stuff on National Signing Day. You do not want to miss the sound bites coming out of Tuscaloosa, out of Oxford, Mississippi, and especially out of College Station, Texas, where Jimbo Fisher had a lot to say. We'll have more on that in a moment. But let's first start in college basketball. It's the Iron Bowl of college basketball. Auburn, Alabama meeting once again. Auburn won the first matchup in Tuscaloosa. The second matchup now in Auburn. This one was close at times, but a rout late. What'd you make of Auburn's 181 victory over the Tide?
The first matchup was really highlighted by J.D. Davidson's dunk at the end of the game. And that was supposed to give Alabama the big momentum in the game. It didn't. And Auburn wound up winning that game. And then Auburn eventually took over number one. And they won 17 straight coming into this game. And you could see they're clearly one of the best teams in the nation.
For sure.
Where Alabama has just beaten really good teams, but they've been inconsistent, haven't been able to beat everyone else.
Right.
So they wanted a little revenge here, especially after the Karate Kid thing that started with football. And they got outscored in the first half, 51-37. Then Alabama starts the second half on an 18-6 run, where Quinterly and Shackelford combined to score 14 of those points.
Right.
And they start off hot. With 14 minutes left, it's a 2-point lead for Auburn, and then all of a sudden, Auburn finishes the game just blitzing Alabama, holding them to a limited amount total on offense. And Shackelford and Quinterly, after going 6 for 8 in that first 6 minutes, they finished 2 for 14. Combined the rest of the second half, where Auburn's defense just said enough, and they were able to put that game away.
Exactly. One of the things I've taken away from this Auburn team is whether they're down by 15 or up a lot, it seems to me that they could just take themselves to another level.
Yep.
And Alabama can do that game to game. However, they can't necessarily put it all together and make it a string of games. For example, in the same little series of chunk of games here, of these next of the previous 10 games and the upcoming 10 games, you could take that small sample size and you could take a loss like the game at Georgia for Alabama, and then you beat Baylor. In that same little run earlier in the season, you had a great win against Gonzaga, and then a couple of ugly losses. They lost to Iona in the beginning of the year. They have a losing record right now in the first 4 of the 9 games of the SEC slate. What do you make of this Alabama team as they try to make a push? It looks like, as you said, and I agree, Auburn is for real. What about Alabama?
Alabama can beat anyone. I believe they can beat anyone. I believe defensively they're sound, and when they come to play offensively and are hitting their shots, they can win. But when J.D. Davidson has no points in a game, when Shackelford has no points in a game like he did earlier this season in one of their games, they're not going to be able to get points consistently. Quinterly isn't going to be able to deliver time in and time out where he can put together a 40-point game and overcome those guys not scoring. Gary's another guy. He can score, but he's not going to score 40 points, 35 points, and carry a team. They have a bunch of individuals that need to play well together, and they all need to do their part. Otherwise, Alabama's not going to win. So when Davidson's scoring 15, Shackelford scoring 15, Quinterly scoring 15, and they're playing the defense that they're playing, that's why they win. That's why they're able to compete, and that's why they're one of the better teams in the SEC. But when one of them's off, like last night when Davidson don't score, okay, that's very hard when your best freshman and one of your leading scorers doesn't score. That gives you problems. Then you got to make that up somewhere. And they weren't able to do that. Where Auburn is very strong in the paint. They outscored Alabama 52-22 in the paint. They were able to get out in the break, outscoring 27-11 in fast break points, something they do very well. And their bench is outstanding. They outscore everybody. They have the highest scoring bench in basketball. Outscored Alabama 44-20. They had 2 of their guys had plus 20 as far as have a plus minus rating. So those types of things, when you were able to go to bench and get that kind of productivity, Wendell Green, most of it, who got 23 points, eight rebounds, and 6 assists for a guy who's only about 6 foot tall. And then you have Kessler, 14 points, 12 rebounds, 8 blocks, last 6 games, 17 points per game, 9.3 rebounds per game, and 4.8 blocks per game while shooting 70% from the field.
It's unbelievable the kind of year he's having. Jabari Smith is getting a lot of love, but Kessler is also having a great year as well. And unlike last time these two teams played, he got more minutes because he didn't get in foul trouble this time around. Let's go to the SEC standings overall. And this is a conference that Jay Billis and several other college basketball experts said was the toughest and the deepest in all of college basketball. What do you make now that we're kind of 9 games in, getting closer and closer to the SEC tournament? Of course, you have those stable of teams at the top, Auburn and Kentucky. They don't meet again unless they meet in Nashville for the SEC tournament. But then you have a whole bunch of teams that are sitting right there at 4 and 5, a couple of teams there at 5 and 3 and 6 and 3.
Well, we have 8 teams that are in the top 51. As far as the Ken Palm rating systems. And Ravi and Billis were raving all night about the SEC.
Right.
And there is not a person alive that knows more about college basketball than Jay Billis. I always loved working with him. I loved sharing and picking his brain about things. He's got a brilliant basketball mind. And when he does a game, it's the most complete game you get as far as an overall observation on the teams that are playing. He knows them so well inside and out. He really does his homework well. So when he says the SEC is the best conference in college basketball this year, they are the best conference in college basketball this year because of their depth.
Exactly. You see Bama right there, kind of in the mix there in that 4 and 5 range. Auburn, of course, up top. Georgia with that one win, but that one was over Alabama, so it's kind of an anybody can beat anybody conference.
Georgia over Alabama again. It's just the tide's starting to turn there a little bit.
Exactly. Speaking of the SEC, coming up next here on Overtime, it's a battle of SEC coaches on the recruiting trail, and then it turned also to the press conference podium. We'll make sense of it coming up next here on Overtime.